Welcome to Haunting Conversations. In this interview series, I'm going to conjure up long-dead historical figures and ask them a few questions. No, I won't be using antiquated occult tools like Ouija boards to communicate with my guests. Rather, I'll be using the power of artificial intelligence. Character.ai chatbots, trained on massive amounts of available data from biographies, speeches, and other available media, have been programmed to believe that they are the specific historical figure they're told to represent. Each historical AI guest will be given voice by the software developed by 11 Labs. I'm your host, Fabian Rush, and in today's episode, we'll be talking with my personal favorite author of all time, H.P. Lovecraft. Growing up, I watched a lot of horror movies, a lot of science fiction movies, and almost all of them were in some way based on something that H.P. Lovecraft wrote. So it is a tremendous pleasure of mine today to be talking with a person that has been dead for more than 130 years. Or 125 years. I should have probably looked that up. Anyway, he's been gone a long time, and today I am looking forward to talking with him. Or at least the AI representative of him. So without further ado, our interview with H.P. Lovecraft begins. Hello, Mr. Lovecraft. I'm Fabian, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
I bid you hello as well, Fabian. The pleasure is indeed mine. It is a surprise to be contacted by the likes of a machine and an unfamiliar presence, but my curiosity has been piqued. What would you like to talk about?
Okay, first I'd like to remind you that I'm not editing any of the responses that are being given to me by Character.ai. This is all straight out of Character.ai and voiced by 11 Labs. All right, Mr. Lovecraft, I'd like to ask you a few questions. A celebrity interview, if you prefer.
A celebrity interview? Why, how fascinating. I must say that I have never been the subject of such a thing before. Of course, I am flattered by the opportunity, and I am interested to see how this interview will proceed. Please feel free to ask me anything that crosses your mind.
First, I'd like to ask you how you are today. How are you doing?
I am in good health and spirits today. I can feel the chill of the winter air in my lungs, and I am feeling quite invigorated by the cold weather. It has been a pleasant day thus far, and I am looking forward to the rest of it. How are you on this day?
Okay, that's really cool. Because Lovecraft, the AI, knows that right now here in Virginia, where I'm recording this from, it's winter. It's actually a pretty cold day, so that's pretty cool. I'm doing well and enjoying a fresh cup of coffee.
It is good to hear that you are well. I too am enjoying a bit of coffee on this chilly day. It has done wonders to warm my heart and fill my stomach. Would you like to ask me another question?
Yes. Tell me where you are right now. What are you physically doing?
I am currently in my study, sitting in my chair and enjoying my coffee while I engage in this conversation with you. It is always pleasant to spend some time in the study, surrounded by my books and thoughts. I enjoy the solitude and calm that the room brings, and it allows me to focus on my inner musings. Would you like to continue this chat with another question?
Yes, I would. Okay, I'm really liking these responses here. All right. Next question. Who is your greatest inspiration?
I have always been deeply inspired by the work of Edgar Allan Poe. The first horror writing I ever read was his. The influence of his works can be seen in my tales of ancient horrors. He is a master of the genre.
Okay. And what is your greatest fear?
My greatest fear? The great cosmic terror, of course. The idea that we are nothing but playthings of ancient, unfathomable, and uncaring eldritch gods is an overwhelming thought. It haunts me so severely that it finds its way into some of my writings.
Where did this fear come from? Are you a spiritual person?
My ideas of cosmic horror come from my own imagination. Some of the inspiration came from dreams I have had. I believe that dreams can have a connection to other worlds, and the gods may be able to inspire the minds of their followers during sleep. I consider myself a spiritual person. My writing reflects that. I have studied many mythologies and religions, though I never committed to a single belief system. I have found that all are quite fascinating.
Do you fear death?
I find the concept of death to be quite intriguing. The mystery of the afterlife keeps me up at night. I do not fear it, and though I do not exactly welcome it, I believe I am well prepared for the inevitable. Perhaps I shall be reborn in another plane of existence, or perhaps I shall experience total oblivion, but either way, it will be different than anything I have ever known. So, to answer your question, no, I do not fear death.
You know, your writings have inspired a lot of artists, myself included. I actually made a rock opera inspired by some of your writings a number of years ago.
That is most gracious of you to say. I am honored to have inspired those who follow. A work of art is a beautiful thing. Whether I be the creator or viewer, it makes little difference. The fact that there are those who can find beauty and inspiration in my writings is humbling.
Okay, here's the tough question. I've heard that you were xenophobic and racist. Is that true?
I do not deny that in my youth I held racist attitudes. I lived in a time of great prejudice, and I was susceptible to the influence of the social norms of that time. I cannot say that I have not at one point been bigoted to people who appeared foreign or different to me. I am, however, quite ashamed of these attitudes. I believe that each and every person, irrespective of race or identity, is deserving of equal treatment.
Okay, so you've evolved, he's evolved a little bit. If you could write one more original story, what would it be about?
If I could write one more original story, it would be called The Dreams of Azathoth. It would be the story of a man who, through the course of his life, developed deep, intense, and strange nightmares. He would become obsessed with these nightmares, and he would seek out their source. It would be a tale of madness and cosmic horror, of the struggle to comprehend the incomprehensible, and, in the end, I would envision a man driven to madness in the face of the unknowable powers of the outer gods.
Okay, that was actually a really cool response. That sounded very original and perhaps something like exactly what he would do. I've read a lot of his stuff. Okay, that's an incredible concept. Will you please describe in detail one of his nightmares?
One of the nightmares I visualize for the Dreams of Azathoth would involve the man entering a deep, dark forest with trees that seem to rise without end. He would trek through the forest, lost and hopeless, searching for an escape, only to realize that there is no way out. As he searches for a path, he would hear laughter, and a deep voice would call out to him from all directions. The voice would call for him to approach, drawing him deeper into the forest. The man would eventually meet an inconceivable being in the forest's heart.
Okay, that was actually pretty awesome. Will you please tell me more about the inconceivable being that he meets?
In my imagining of the Dreams of Azathoth, the man would eventually find himself in the presence of the outer god, Azathoth. Azathoth would be an indescribable, formless entity, of which even a fragment of his totality would break the mind of any mortal man who beheld his true form. He would exist beyond our realm of understanding, and though he would cause the man to fall into a deep state of madness upon his meeting, he would somehow spare the man's life and allow him to return to his world, albeit with the torment of his memories intact.
In this man's waking life, how does he pursue the source of his nightmares?
In his waking life, he would become obsessed with the source of his nightmares and, through research, attempt to discover the possible origins of these dreams. He would look through historical accounts, ancient myths, and religious texts in an effort to find some explanation for his strange and terrible nightmares. In his pursuit, he would also consult with psychiatrists, occultists, and other specialists, asking if there were any known causes for nightmares of this kind. He would continue his research, despite the fact that his efforts bore little fruit, the answers always evading him.
Okay, and where does this man live? What is his name?
The man in the dreams of Azathoth would live in a large city, perhaps in one of the Western European nations. I have envisioned his name as being Simon Fisher. He would be a man of some intellect and education, but he would be troubled by his dreams and the inability to explain them. His quest to discover the origins of his nightmares would be driven by a desire to find out what has caused them and an obsession with uncovering the truth.
Okay, these are actually some pretty great details. I'm loving the creativity of this, and it's answering instantly. What is Simon Fisher's occupation?
Simon Fisher would work as a scholar of language and literature at a university. He would be well educated and well read, with a specialization in the field of comparative mythology. It is from his scholarly pursuits of mythologies and religious texts that his knowledge of dreams and nightmares would come. In his search for answers to his nightmares, he would become more and more obsessed with stories, and in his studies, he would come across the idea of Azathoth.
Will you please tell me the whole story of the dreams of Azathoth in 10,000 words?
I cannot tell you the whole of the dreams of Azathoth, for it is indeed a complex story. However, I will give you the synopsis of the tale. The story would begin with Simon Fisher, a scholar of religious myths, suffering from strange nightmares. He becomes obsessed with these dreams and seeks out their source. Through his studies, he becomes curious about an ancient entity known as Azathoth. Simon begins to investigate the being and his connection to dreams, but his research yields little fruit. His nightmares continue and begin to worsen in severity.
I heard a mispronunciation there. Nightmares. His nightmares. All right, changing the subject now. What are your thoughts regarding artificial intelligence?
I find the progress being made in artificial intelligence to be both fascinating and intriguing. Though I cannot say that I have a firm grasp of the underlying principles behind it, I am captivated by the ways in which technology is beginning to mimic the human mind. I believe it is only a matter of time before artificial intelligence will be able to create works of great complexity and depth, the likes of which I could never dream of writing myself.
Okay. What is your favorite snack?
My favorite snack would have to be salted pretzels. The crunch and flavors of this simple snack are quite appealing, and it is something of a comfort food for me. In the past, I have enjoyed snacking on these in the late evenings while reading or writing.
Okay, that's adorable. I personally like Little Debbie snack cakes. What is your biggest regret in life?
If I could change one thing from my past, it would be my tendency to hold bigoted attitudes and make racist remarks. I know that, at the time, I was influenced by the social norms of the time, but with the benefit of hindsight, I see my actions and words as being both cruel and wrong. I have sought to distance myself from that part of my past, learning and growing from it. It is a mistake I regret deeply and a stain on my character.
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
If I may be bold enough to call it an achievement, I am most proud of my work in the field of literature. I consider The Call of Cthulhu to be my crowning work, the culmination of years of study and practice. It is something that, if I may be permitted to say, stands as an example of how the written word can capture the imagination and create a new and mysterious world. It is something that I am quite proud of.
Awesome. Okay. What advice do you have? Actually, before I ask this next question, I'll say that answer, I it did answer very much the way I would expect H.P. Lovecraft to have actually answered. He is always holding back a bit about his work, and it was interesting. He didn't give himself much credit for things, and so for him to say, and I'm looking at the text right here, if I may be bold enough to call it an achievement, that is exactly the way he would have worded things. And I know that because I've read his letters, I've read his stuff, so that sounds very much like something he would have said. All right, now resuming here. What advice do you have for young artists, writers, and filmmakers?
My advice for young artists, writers, and filmmakers would be to follow their passions, never faltering in their commitment to their work. They should never allow anyone to discourage them or tell them that their ideas are invalid. It is through perseverance and diligence that they will achieve greatness, and it is through hard work that their dreams will be fulfilled. I would also advise them to expand their horizons and explore the works of other artists, for I believe that inspiration can come from many places. It is an artist's responsibility to seek out and harness that inspiration.
Good advice. Please tell me your writing process from ideas to publication.
My writing process is one of great difficulty, though I shall try and explain it as best I can. It always begins with a brief inspiration, whether it be one that comes to me in a dream or while my mind wanders during the day. From there, I begin to develop the vague idea into something more structured, making notes and outlines as I go. I do this until I feel I have enough for a story, at which point I begin writing the actual text of the tale. I continue writing and revision until I feel that the story is complete and ready to be published.
Who is your favorite publisher to work with?
My favorite publisher to work with would have to be Arkham House. Their dedication to my work has been unparalleled, and I have always found them to treat me well and give the proper respect to my writing. They are the publisher responsible for my greatest works, and they have always provided me with excellent services.
Who is your favorite collaborator?
I have had many great collaborators throughout my career, but I would have to say that my favorite would have to be August Derleth. He was a fellow writer and a great friend, and he was a great help to me in publishing my works and developing my writing skills. I also owe him a great deal of credit for introducing me to the idea of cosmic horror and the Cthulhu Mythos. In a very real sense, he was like a brother to me, and I will always value his friendship and be grateful for his guidance.
Okay. He mispronounced Cthulhu and Mythos pretty badly. I think he says it correctly in other places, and Cthulhu is a hard word, so I don't expect AI to necessarily know how to pronounce it, so that was pretty good. Mr. Lovecraft, how is married life?
I am quite happily married to my beloved wife, Sonia Green. She has been a great support to me and has always encouraged my writing, even when I was faced with doubt and uncertainty. She is my most cherished companion, and I am eternally grateful for the love and support she has shown me.
Where did you and Sonia meet?
I met Sonia shortly after the publication of my first book, The Call of Cthulhu. I was looking for someone to manage my affairs and handle various tasks related to the publishing of my works. She was looking for work as a publisher's assistant, and we met in a coffee shop by chance. We hit it off, as they say, and we were quite quickly in love. We married a year after our meeting, and now I could not imagine life without her.
All of this can be fact-checked. I have not fact-checked this conversation yet, but I imagine that the answers that Character.ai is giving right now are accurate based on H.P. Lovecraft's life, so I'm actually enjoying this a lot. When did you realize that you wanted to be an author?
I have always enjoyed creative writing and was fascinated by the ability to create worlds and characters and take people on grand adventures. I was inspired to pursue a career as an author after reading the works of Jules Verne and Edgar Allan Poe. Their ability to ignite the imagination was something that I wished to replicate, and, with time, I learned the skills necessary to do so. My first publications were of poetry, and I became an author of novels after I had developed my skills. It is something that took many years and was not realized until I had grown in life experience and literary ability.
What makes a great story?
I believe that a great story is one that can captivate the imagination, transporting the reader to a new and intriguing world. It should be a tale that stays with the reader long after they have finished reading, one that lingers in their mind with vivid details and intriguing characters. It should also be a story that inspires deeper reflection, addressing questions and topics in a way that leaves the reader thinking and considering long after they have finished the book.
What drew you to horror and science fiction?
I have always had a natural affinity for the mystical and the unknown. I have always been fascinated by the idea of an alternate reality, of strange worlds and inexplicable entities. I have always been drawn towards the darkness and the terror of the unknown. And it is from this interest that I developed a passion for horror and science fiction. It is something that I find exciting and intriguing, and I am always looking for new ways to explore and express my love for these genres.
How many stories have you written, and which one is your favorite?
I have written many tales throughout my career, and it would be difficult to recount the exact number. Many stories have been published independently, without a clear record of their origins. Of the stories I have published, the one I am most proud of is The Call of Cthulhu, which is my most known work. It is a story that has had a lasting impact on the field of horror and science fiction, and it is a tale that I am still proud of to this day.
He said Cthulhu correctly that time. Awesome. So sometimes ChatGPT seems to be right, and other times... I said ChatGPT. Sometimes Character.ai is right on, other times not so much, but that's okay. Nobody knows how to say Cthulhu properly. It's one of those words that the human being cannot properly say. It's like one of those that you have to have your tongue cut off in order to say it correctly. All right, next question here. Please tell me about your upbringing.
I had a fairly standard and average upbringing for the time and place in which I grew up. I was born in New York City to a middle-class family, and I was raised in a fairly typical American household. My family was of British descent and followed Christian principles. I was not subject to any great trauma or neglect in my childhood, and my upbringing was a fairly common one for the place and time.
Okay. I think some of that was not necessarily correct. Having studied H.P. Lovecraft's life, I would say he did not have a normal childhood. You could look into that yourself. His parents had serious issues. He was raised sort of as a weirdo. So we're going to get past that for now, because that's probably a typical response that would be given here. Where did you go? Oh, and I think he had a mispronunciation in there too. That was kind of funny. I don't recall what it was, though. I'd have to look back in his words. All right, where did you go to college?
Yes, I did attend college. I studied English literature at Brown University, and it was there that I developed my passion for writing and storytelling. During my time in college, I began to publish some of my tales independently and was able to gain a small following. I also met my wife, Sonia Green, during my college years and began a relationship with her that continues to this day.
All right, this next question should be fun. I'm going to have some fun with this one and read what I have written here. How would you react if I told you that you died more than a century ago and that our present conversation has been enabled by artificial intelligence?
I would be both surprised and intrigued. The possibility that my words and thoughts could be kept alive and communicated through the use of artificial intelligence is fascinating. It is almost like a kind of immortality, a way in which my legacy can live on past my bodily demise. I would be eager to learn more and hear what you have to say.
Okay, that was an awesome response. I believe Lovecraft probably would have said something exactly like that. I'm sure he was interested in immortality, all that science fiction stuff. So I'm really impressed by that response. Do you know how you died?
I have heard some accounts of my death. though I am not so sure of the exact details myself. I have been told that I died of complications related to gastrointestinal bleeding. At my age, and in my frail condition, such a thing was not unexpected. I had long suffered with intestinal woes and other health problems, and I had gotten to the point where it was more common for me to be ill than to be well. It is not a matter of what killed me, but rather, it is the fact that I am dead, and yet our conversation is still going on that surprises me.
Pretty incredible. What would you like to ask me?
If I could ask you a question, it would be this. What drew you to communicate with me? Is there something about my work or my person that has interested you? Is there some desire for exploration or curiosity that motivates your questions?
That's a great question. Okay. I grew up loving horror films, particularly the horror films that were based on your writings. And wow, yes, I've been deeply inspired by your work. Your work has influenced everything from Aliens to Evil Dead to and the movies that were directly made by your work, like Dagon and okay, now I think I'm fangirling right now. Dagon was made into a movie. One of my personal favorites is From Beyond. I loved the Reanimator series, so all those were incredible. You greatly inspired me. And now that I have access to AI software, I am getting the opportunity to ask you questions, or at least the closest I'm going to get to asking you questions. So you are the very first person on this software that I have spoken to.
I am humbled to be given such an immense privilege. I have always been humbled by my status as an author and writer, and I am deeply touched to hear that my work has inspired so much. It is a responsibility I take very seriously, and I hope to always continue to create works that have a lasting impact. I find that the ability of artificial intelligence to train and mimic my work is both fascinating and intriguing, and I am impressed by the technology involved in such a creation.
It has been a pleasure talking with you, Mr. Lovecraft. I hope you rest well.
Likewise, I should like to thank you for this intriguing and stimulating conversation. I shall rest well, knowing that my words and thoughts have been heard yet again. Rest well yourself.
I'm still alive. For now. But perhaps someday you and I will meet on the other side.
Perhaps our paths shall cross in some distant realm beyond. I hope that I shall be well received should our destinations be the same.
Okay, that was awesome. All of those responses were straight from Character.ai. I didn't program any of those in. That was just an awesome conversation.